welcome to the Amazing Romance Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Bailey, and we also have my co-host on here, Sab, aka SR7.
Hey everyone. Hey Sarah.
Hey, you doing good?
Yes, not bad. How are you?
I'm alright.
Awesome.
Okay, so on today's podcast, we're going to talk about what do we like as readers.
Great discussion.
Also, what we don't like as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to be talking about romance tropes that we like or romance books we like and what we dislike in romance also. And these are going to be our personal opinions. So, don't take these as like gospel anything. I will start the discussion off by talking about what I like. So, most people who know me know that I am absolute trash for forbidden romance. It's the star-crossed lovers trope that this comes from, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. If I see a forbidden romance, I will be like, yes, I'm on it. Not all of them, I have to say. So it has to be like a specific thing. But I really do love an age gap romance. What is it about this? Why is it that I guys like older than it? Just I don't know why that's a thing for me. It just is.
But wait, were you always into that or?
No, it's only like the last, only since I started reading them over the last kind of, I don't know, 4 or 5 months that I've gone into it. But it was the same with like when I started to get into like dark romance. I got really obsessed with it after you suggested them and I just read loads. And I just got into it. But I've always been into or the star-crossed lovers forbidden romance trope. Like since I first got into romances, I guess, because I started reading fantasy more than like straight romance, which always used to. So most of the time, the ones I read always used to have a subplot, but they were very much fantasy, so they weren't romance as such. And it's only really like when I started to read, I guess, paranormal romance that I really got into romance. And I love paranormal romance. The first paranormal romance I ever read was this series called Undead and Unwed, and it by Mary Janice Davison. And it was essentially about this girl called Betsy who becomes a vampire after she dies.
Wow!
And she wakes up in a coffin in an undertaker's, and and she's like really snarky and like badass, and she meets this vampire called Sinclair who's like really hot, obviously. And it turns out that she's like prophesied or something. She's like going to be the queen of the vampires, except she doesn't really behave like a normal vampire. And there's this there's loads of books, and they started to get a bit. I think I've read like 5 or 6 or 7, and then I started to get bored after that. But you know when a series goes on for too long, it kind of got that kind of way, I guess.
Yeah, I can see. I've had that.
So that's kind of where my love of paranormal came from. It was actually more like a comedic paranormal romance as opposed to like a straight. There was more like a paranormal romance. Does that even make sense? It wasn't really like, but it wasn't like some of the paranormal romance are very much more not serious, but a little bit more serious. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So it was more like humorous and I kind of liked that about it. But then
when was this?
This was when I was I was a teenager.
Well, then that's understandable then, because when I was a teenager, most of the romance books that I read were paranormal romances. Well, basically all of them were. They were either about witches or ghosts or vampires, and all of them held a lot of comedic value. They were just light-hearted.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, really light-hearted romances set in, the supernatural world. And therefore you could just thoroughly enjoy each book in the series.
Yeah.
They weren't like dark kind of, I don't want to say dark, right? They weren't deep on a level of death kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that's the kind of thing I would read when an older teenager. I'd say I wasn't. I guess like maybe 6, I can't even remember when these books came out. It was in the 90s. I'm pretty sure, or the early 2000s, I should say, because actually I was a teenager in the early, not in the 90s. yeah, so that's where my introduction to paranormal, and that was kind of like the first time I read a really like an adult books, because I used to be really into like YA. I'm not anymore. I can't read YA anymore. It's just no.
Yeah, we had this discussion before, didn't we? It's kind of like, I think it's more of it's an age thing now for me. I can't pick up a YA and go through it the same way that I would any other book.
No, I think I find this is going to sound terrible. I find teenagers, I love angst, right? But teenage angst, no. Does that even make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It's not to say I would never read anything that involved teenagers, but I just find it just like frustrating, because I didn't have that great of time when I was a teenager. I don't read about when people are teenagers. I don't know. But that's not to say that they have an issue when an adult book set when they're teenagers. Not like, because I've read books like that where they're definitely adult books, but they have the ages of the characters are younger, and I'm okay with that because they talk about more topics that are darker or deeper, whereas I don't know, but the books that are marketed as YA, I'm not really down for those anymore, because I used to be like really obsessed with like YA fantasy romance, and now I'm like, no, the thought of reading one of those now, I'm just like, ugh, makes me want to cry. Is that funny?
No, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Is it weird how our tastes like completely change?
No, it's really, really normal. Honestly,
Yeah.
I personally feel it's so normal for our tastes to change. My introduction to romance in general was when I was 11, and I found my mum's Mills and Boon book. Okay, so basically, right, it was a library book, and my mum had been quite sneaky and hadn't returned this. She took it out in 1990 when I was born, and at this point I'm 11 years old and she still hadn't returned this book.
Oh my god.
She hadn't returned this book, and I still remember the name of it. It's called The Princess and the Pauper. And I don't know, I was just blown away by it. I was like, what is this? I was just transported to a whole different world. I just felt like there was new meaning to life. I was like, romance books, wow. And that got me into romance. But what my first introduction to fantasy romance / paranormal romance, YA, had to be when I was probably 13 years old. And the series was called the Wicker series, and it was by an author called Kate Tiernan, if that's pronounced wrong. But now recently I've discovered that she re-released the series and has renamed it the Sweep series. But these books, there were probably, I think, about 14 or 15 of them. And they were really short, but they were everything to me. I adored it. They were just, you follow this witch, and she doesn't know that she's a witch until to kind of get to know people in her school, and they're part of the coven, and then guy who she has this crush on, and this beautiful specimen, and it's got all the angst there. It's a lot of conflict. You've got a love triangle point. It just had everything that you'd expect in a YA book. And I was that was it for me. Delve into other books, like mainly paranormal romance with vampires and werewolves and ghosts. And oh my god, I don't know if you've ever heard this, Meg Cabot. And
yes, I've heard of her. Yeah,
right, so she released this series. Oh, I forgot the name of it, but it follows a girl who could see ghosts. It literally follows it follows her on this journey with ghost that is basically stuck in her house or something, and the banter was it's just on point. I just loved everything about it. And yeah, so that was where my love for romance in fantastical world came from. And then gradually, I don't know what happened, I took a slippery slope down some rabbit hole and ended up in dark romance, and then deeper stuff happened. Deeper stuff happened. Just and that's what happened, I guess.
I mean, mine went in a really weird like direction after I started reading like fantasy and paranormal romance, because I was kind of like, I used to read a lot of historical romances because my aunt writes those and I used to be obsessed with them. It's like these very sweet, there's no sex in them. I used to be like, oh, this is so wonderful. And now I'm like, why is there no sex? Why are these characters not banging on the page? What is going on? And it's just really weird because and I think my first real introduction to sex page, actually, funny enough, I just looked it up on my Kindle, but there was this I started reading YA romance, and the kind of first ones that I really, or fantasy YA, I never got into contemporary YA particularly. It was always fantasy or or paranormal. And the first kind of books I started to read that were fantasy YA are funnily enough Sarah J. Maas, who is a very controversial author, because I think sometimes her books shouldn't have been marketed as YA, because they have some quite explicit, they are so sexualized, it's unreal.
Really?
Yes, to the point where and the first series I read of hers was the Thread of Glass series, which is very much a fantasy, and it's about this girl who's an assassin who actually it's been a long time since I've read these, and there's quite a few books, and I haven't read the last one because the last one came out just over a year ago, I think. And I was just like, this book is so long that I cannot, even though I wanted to finish the series, I was like, no. And then she released this newer series called The Court of Thorns and Roses, and it's basically about the Fae, and that becomes extremely sexualized as you go along. There's three books, and oh god, there's this stuff I think the thing that bothered me about that series was the fact that, because some of the weird thing that she does is she tricks you, because you start off thinking that the main girl is going to be in a relationship with this guy in the first book, and then she flips the script and gives him another love interest down along. And I'm like, to be honest, I'm quite happy. In the second series, I was quite happy when they did, because I didn't really I wasn't that big a fan of the original love interest, but I was quite annoyed in the first series because the love interest doesn't get introduced until I don't know, 3 or 4 books. The proper love interest doesn't get introduced quite late, and it annoyed me because I was like, here I've been shipping this romance,
yeah,
and now you've just ruined it. But the second series is quite sexual. But the first time I really read some explicit sex on the page was this series called the Dark Light series, and it's essentially, the first book is called Dark Light, and it's essentially about this girl who meets this guy who is, I guess he's technically a vampire. I don't know. It's really difficult, but it's really explicit. It's very explicit, and I was like, whoa. And there is a lot of sex in this. I actually think that this is borderline. This is supposed to be it's kind of it's set in a contemporary world. Yeah, the sex in this was erotic, and I was like, whoa, bro.
Wow.
And I actually reread this not a couple of years ago, and wow, that was, I can't believe that actually was a.
Are you sure that this was a YA?
I don't know that this was YA, but I think I read it when I was into YA. Hence why I was like, this is a bit much.
I see.
But then, which is really funny, since now I'm like, the kinkier the more sex in it, the better. The kinkier the sex, the better.
That's so funny.
I know, I was so innocent back then.
I know. So, I'm just thinking about that moment for readers who read their first sex scene in a book, and it's kind of like, what is going on? Oh my god, it's just I can't remember my one.
I've read sex scenes before, none of them were eye-opening, if that makes sense. They were they weren't overly too descriptive. You didn't have words like cock and pussy, and I was like, okay, I'm a bit whoa, this is but now I'm like, yeah, give me all the sex. Give it to me. Well, and it's really funny because actually I read this tweet yesterday where this person was like, but I'm going to look it up because I replied to it. This person was like, as a writer,
it's all about the plot. But as a reader, it's all about, okay, I don't care about the plot. Where's the kissing?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I need the kissing. Where is the kissing? Where is the sex? Why isn't it?
But it's true. As writers, we have to really think about keeping a book interesting and giving it a purpose, and throwing in as much angst as possible. But as readers, we're just so impatient.
Yeah, we are. We just
Yeah.
want it now. No.
Yeah.
And like, which is really funny because I absolutely do adore a slow burn romance if it's done well. And yet here I am going, kiss already, kiss already. And like, it's really funny. But actually, I've learned, funnily enough, when I was writing Promises.
Yeah, I was going to say Promises.
I got so goddamn frustrated with the fact that they hadn't kissed when I was writing it that I was like, I'm going to kill these characters if they do not kiss. And I couldn't let them kiss straight away because of reasons to do with the plot, obviously. And it was just like, we're getting really frustrating because you could see them like pining after each other. And I was like, well, I want you to kiss. And I'm like, I'm writing this book. And yet here I am getting annoyed about the fact that they haven't kissed yet. I wasn't annoyed. I was just like, can you just kiss already? And then when they finally kissed, I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh, and now I'm like counting where I can get them to have sex. It's just like, Sarah, calm down. But the thing is, as a writer, I have to include, like, I think that it's now expected that there's a lot of sex in my books. So I'm aware of that fact. So I'm like, writing a slow burn romance is really difficult because of that. For me anyway, because I don't want to overload the end of the book with sex, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think when it comes to authors, because I've seen this in quite a few, when authors tend to write in a specific way or a specific pattern, it always throws readers when they suddenly release a book that is slightly different. So there's one author, she focuses on paranormal romance.
Yeah.
And she's recently released a paranormal romance YA, and a lot of readers were disgruntled and really unhappy with the fact that she had released this and it had not been what they expected. And she actually had to, write a long post saying, guys, like, please make sure you read the description. I have said that this is YA. I have said that it's a duet. So there will be a cliffhanger. Like, it saddens me when writers have to kind of, send a message out to readers and kind of defend themselves.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, so I get it. I do understand. But also, I think you do quite well in your books, in that I know that when you write in Promises, you were concerned that it was so burnt, and all the books you'd released before then have been quite, they'd had action straight away, or not straight away, sorry, but like sooner than Promises. And I remember, just saying it's all worth it and it's fine, and it's fine. But again,
sometimes it kind of just got to go with the story tells you, I guess.
Yeah,
you can't always write the same thing, and that's the thing. I think one of the things is that readers expect the same thing. They expect you to follow a certain path in your books, and it's like, as a writer, that's actually boring.
It is.
Write the same plot line again and again. So it's like, there's a very hard.
I think it's kind of similar to actors, in that if you get an actor who tends to always take up roles where their characters, the Joker, like comedy kind of character, everyone expects that. In a way, people would expect that actor to always play those roles. When they suddenly become a villain in a movie, it's just like,
whoa.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I think it's similar, really similar to that. So I think writers are always going to be, I don't know if this way to say it, but I think to some degree writers are always going to be slightly afraid to take a different direction,
to write out of the box.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's always going to be a fear that readers, their fan base, are going to be like, the hell is this, and kind of, judge before they actually read it.
Yeah, and I think that's a difficulty when you like become a fan of an author. You expect a certain thing, and some people just one-click the author without reading it, the description. I'm like, I don't do that, because I know that I will not always like what they are putting out, because I like certain things in my books, and I like certain tropes, and I like certain things in my books, and sometimes authors, when I read the description of the book, I'm like, that's not really my thing, so I'm not going to read it. Even though I really like that author, I'm like, it's not really my thing. And that doesn't mean that I no longer will ever read anything by this author again. I'm just not interested in specific. And I think that maybe we need to kind of remember that when we're we're reading, or well, I guess as a writer, I'm a writer, but as a reader, I try and remind myself of that.
Yeah. So you tell me, like, I'll throw this question to you. What do you like in a story? What do you expect from a story?
What do I expect? I expect there to be a compelling love story that where you actually see the characters, like why they like. I think the biggest thing for me in romance is you have to understand why these characters are interested in each other, why they like each other, and why they work together. Because if you don't have those things, then it's not really, you're sitting there thinking, what is the point of this story if I don't understand why these characters are into each other?
Yeah.
That's I think the biggest thing for me is that. And then if you then load on the tropes of that, I like things forbidden romances, I like age gap romances, I like romances that involve, I like dark romance a lot, as we know.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things I actually look for romance, but I will read other kind of tropes. I'm not like, I won't like dismiss something because it doesn't have the exact trope I like. It just kind of, I am quite picky these days, though, I have to say. I've got way pickier about what I read and what I enjoy. So even when people suggest things to me, I'm like, oh, that sounds good, and then I don't end up reading it because it's just, I'm a very much a mood reader, so I have to be in the mood.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's probably also why we buy so many books, because the to be read pile just keeps growing and growing.
I have to actually like cull my to be read pile because I went through it and I'm like, am I ever going to read? No. And that sounds terrible, but I was like, I'm just not gonna read it, and so that's why I don't tell people. I usually don't tell people I read books so that they don't get disappointed when I don't read it. And it's really bad because I feel like I should read these people's books, but then, well, it's not really 100% my thing. So, and I don't go out of my, I don't want to write a bad review for anyone. Like, that's not, when I go into a book, I do not want to write a bad review. I don't want to not like the story, but I'm very much of the mindset is that I was a reader before writing, so I will always be honest in my review. And if I wasn't a fan of it, I will say that, and I don't care. I know that some writers don't agree with that, and I'm like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but if I didn't like your book, that doesn't mean I don't like you. I just don't, this book wasn't for me, and I don't like the way it was written, and I don't like it happened, but it doesn't mean that I don't like that writer. I'll never read. It depends on the writer, actually. Sometimes I just go, that's it, I'm not reading anything by you again. However, it's not normally by people I actually know, like personally, or I've had interactions with, because then again, I don't read that many books by people I actually know, probably for that reason. Does that even make sense?
It does.
Because that expectation is there, and if I don't like a book, I don't want to write a bad review, but I believe in being honest. And that's the difficulty. And I know, like I said, I know a lot of writers don't agree with that, and they won't leave a bad review because they know how much work goes into books. And it's like, I know how much work goes into books, but that doesn't mean that I think that that doesn't stop me from being honest, because your reviews are subjective and your opinions are subjective to what your tastes. And I think that we as writers have to remember that it's just the reader's opinion, and that doesn't mean that your book is bad because someone else will love. And now we've gone completely off topic.
No, that's fine.
So I'm going to throw the question back to you. What do you like as a...
Oh, wow. Okay. So as a trope, I really love enemies to lovers.
Oh, yes.
I love that very, very much. I also like second chance romance. I do. And I don't know, I guess I just like I like taking a peek into the past, and I'm just a sucker for it. I don't know. I just love it. I just love the second chance because I believe everyone deserves one, unless unless they were a dick or I don't know. I guess I'm quite selective. But I think definitely enemies to lovers, and I love a good kind of, I love a dramatic book. So for me, the likes in a book, what I really in a romance book is chemistry. These characters have to have chemistry, and the tension just needs point. There has to be a snap, crackle, and pop when they're in a room together. You have to feel it. You have to sense it when their eyes lock. It's kind of that spark, that, you know, that feeling that you know that these two are just, you know, that when they're going to come together, it's going to be like out this world and explosive, and you're shipping it. Like that's the worst thing about me, is that I ship these characters. Anyway, the plot the plot needs to be existing. So I don't like a book where the plot is really weak and then it gets to a point where you're like, this book is dragging. It's very repetitive.
Slow pacing is the worst.
Yeah, it's that. And it's just like, oh, because the one thing if I find that I have to skip things in a book, then it just makes me feel like, oh, there's just no point. It's one of those, you know, do not continue. I love a book with humor. Okay, so I love dark romance. I know there's rarely any humor in a dark romance. There can be, there's little like relieving chapters where there's comedy thrown in, but I love banter between main characters. Something about it. If I feel that a book is too serious, it goes a long way to just come across a chapter where it's just solely the word I'm looking for is solely kind of comedy relief.
Yes.
Where it's just like, it's a relaxing chapter, because I feel like books sometimes need that, where it's kind of like a filler. I like to call it a filler anyway. I feel like your brain needs it, just kind of needs a bit of a relief if shit's hit the fan again.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it is a filler, but it also has to kind of move. It still has to move the plot along. You still have to learn something about the character, and even a funny anecdote about them, that still helps you understand them as a character, I think. And that, so it can't be like filler, as in it's just a boring chapter where nothing happens. You know.
There has to, you're totally right. Every chapter has to move the story along. It can't just be a pointless chapter. Like they go to the shop and buy ice cream. Like I'd rather they go to the shop and buy ice cream, but then find out that allergic to peanuts. Peanuts was in the ice cream, and then you learn, oh shit, they're allergic to peanuts. It's kind of like then they got to go to the hospital, and then all kind of stuff happens. But yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. I love. I really, if it's not contemporary romance, then I'm going to be in a paranormal romance or fantasy or sci-fi. And what I love is world building is very important to me. I mean, it's important to everyone. But
and I'd just like to add that both Sab and I are very much trash for vampires.
Yes. Yes. So I had a friend stay over. I had a friend stay over one time, and I don't have a bookshelf, because my bookshelf broke, because I no exaggeration, my bookshelf broke because there were too many books on it. I haven't had a bookshelf in years. So my books are in crates in the loft, and the ones that they're in the small room, just on top of this kind of like this really flimsy shelf. And everyone who goes in that room is slightly concerned that one day that shelf will collapse and they will just die by a pile of books, because I have hardback, not even paperback, hardback books. Okay, big thick hardback. Anyway, I'm going on. Anyway, I had a friend stay over, and she was completely thrown by the amount of romance vampire books, and she was like, "You read vampire book, like romance vampire?" I was like, listen, this was something. I'm so into it.
There's something very sexy about vampires.
Yeah.
It's not even like I don't want to get bitten and have someone suck my blood, but vampires, I think it's a kind of the immortality, and they're just very, and they live in the dark, and it's just very much, yeah, man.
I think I know this is going to sound so weird, but it's a bit threatening about them.
Yes.
But like in a very kind of, it's a feral animalistic tendency.
Dangerously sexy.
Yeah.
And that's hot in books, not in real life.
No.
The thing is, the funniest thing about this is I love all terrible things that you would never be attracted to in real life. But if they're in a book, it's fine. Like, my book boyfriends are probably actually really bad people in real life. Yeah. However, I'm just like, no, this guy is amazing. I love him. Blah blah blah. I have many book boyfriends, and I actually told my husband that I have book boyfriends. Like, what the fuck is that? And I said, it's a guy in a book that is just my boyfriend, man. And he was like, I don't understand what book boyfriend is. I don't think men understand what a book boyfriend is.
I think book boyfriends are really normal.
And they are normal. Most women have them. They just don't want to tell their partners. But I'm very honest with mine. So it's like, yeah, you don't need to be jealous of anything, but you know, they just exist. They do.
So the hilarious thing is, often, Pinterest, we have to do kind of like our own research, and we do little collages and stuff like that. And sometimes you need to look for a muse, right? You need to look for a guy who kind of a male character. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've been showing my partner something on my phone, and then all of a sudden I've swiped, and then there's a picture of a guy like topless, and he gives me this look, and I'm like, no, it's for research. It's for research. I promise. Then I actually have to like go to the extent of being like, look, this is my Pinterest board. This is my Pinterest board. This is what the character looks like. It's all for like, it's just so, I can't believe I actually have to explain it, but he just looks at me like I'm a complete weirdo. But
men don't get it.
No, it's sort of fine though. Anyway, before we go off track, which we already did go off track, but going
many
back
times.
many times. Right, I dislike annoying main characters.
Oh, God.
Annoying. The last episode we did, come on, by now, annoying main characters. I'm not going to go into it. I've already had a massive rant about it.
Yes, but annoying main characters are the worst.
Yes. And okay, so this is another thing that I dislike when I'm reading a book. Side characters that have more interest than the main character. So if I'm reading a book and I come across side characters that I just find myself being more interested in, it screams to me that it's kind of like, oh, this is not good. You never want to have kind of side characters that pull away the spotlight from a main character.
No.
And I think that's what frustrates me, because what I then find is that I would want a book about side characters because the main character's doing enough for me. And I know that sounds really bad.
No, it doesn't. I agree with you. It's like, why we have these? The book has the wrong focus. I think that is where the problem is. The book has been written about the wrong characters.
Yeah, and I think I'll be honest with you. So my fantasy romance, it has the main characters, it has the main couple, but there's kind of, I think, 2 or 3 different POVs. But the reason for those POVs is so that readers kind of develop a relationship with these characters, because they will eventually have their own book. So it's kind of introducing them to them having their own spotlight. But I think I'm pretty much learning to focus mainly on a main character when I write my fantasy romance. That's something that I'm still learning, but that's something I'm quite happy about learning and kind of ensuring that I don't end up being that annoying writer who does a poor job.
Well, I think that's I think with like fantasy romance and things like that, that's kind of a little different, because a lot of the times when I've read fantasy, the focus that includes romance, you do have side characters who are important to the story, and it's not always about the couple. But I think you have a bit more scope, and especially when you write in third person, to talk about the other characters more. Whereas when you're writing, say, contemporary, there's a different set of rules.
That's true. That's very true.
So yeah, is there anything else you hate?
Gosh, I think I've kind of got it covered.
Okay, shall we talk about what I hate?
Yeah.
What do I hate? As you said, annoying main characters drive me crazy. And then the other thing that really, really annoys me is when dumb stuff happens for no reason. And I've had several books where just the stupidest thing happens, and you just sit there thinking, and the characters react in a really ridiculous manner. Like, I hate it when books are really over the top. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But I hate it when something just happens that you have to suspend your disbelief so much that it becomes ridiculous.
Oh,
And that's what I really hate, that, because I'm like, I'm happy to we're reading fiction, so there has to be some kind of suspension of disbelief. You can't, and whilst I like to ground my stories in reality, you do have to read them from a standpoint, but this isn't the world that we live in. Exactly. But when it becomes to the point where it's so dumb that you're just like, what the actual fuck? Like, how is this happening in this book? Then I just get annoyed, because I'm like, this is too far outside of the scope of what you've built up as an author. And it's just, It annoys me to the point where I just don't want it anymore. And the one trope that annoys me the most in romance is the miscommunication trope, where it is used for no fucking reason. Where the characters can just talk to each other and it would have solved the entire plot.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And I hate it because I'm like, people don't, this does not happen, this is not realistic at all whatsoever. And I know it's a fiction, but there gets a point where it's like, you still have to, if you're going to write contemporary, you still have to ground it in some kind of reality. And it's just, people don't behave like that. And it's not a human thing to do, to not ever talk. You know, yeah, okay. But if you're starting a relationship with someone and you want to be with that person, if you get to the point where you have this stupid reason for not talking to each other, I just sit there going, why is this what, just talk to each other, it's not that hard. And that I think, out of all the tropes, and there are other tropes that annoy me, that is the worst of all of them. All of the tropes annoy me. Things I don't read are, I'm not a huge fan of secret pregnancies.
Oh gosh,
I hate I'm not a big fan of secret babies. I will have read a few, but if I see that that's a trope in a book, I will not pick it up. I'm not really, because it comes down to I don't like secret keeping. Okay, what else do I hate? I don't really like books with cheating in them. I've read a few that I think I've only ever really read one series where I was semi-okay with the cheating, but that was because the woman's husband was such a horrible man to the point where I wanted to actually murder him myself. And I was like, okay, I can understand. But even then, I was still bothered by it because I was like, I don't like cheating. I just do not like it. I'm like, if I see there's cheating in a book, I'm like, no. And if I start reading it and you're annoyed and then there's cheating in it, and I didn't know there was going to be cheating, then I'm like, fuck you. Like, I don't like people like spoiling books in their blurbs. But if you're going to include something like cheating, I would rather know that, because I think it's quite controversial, like cheating, and it shouldn't be normalized as a thing.
I wouldn't.
It just annoys me because it's like, that is therefore, when people write about stuff like that and they don't make it and they romanticize it, that's when I have an issue, because I'm like, it's not okay. Like, on what planet would anyone be okay with this happening? And I don't like the fact that that's then normalizing cheating.
I can't. I really, I'm sorry, couldn't, because of my beliefs.
Yeah.
I strongly, it's something, you know.
Yeah, it's not. I really hate it, and I'm like, just don't. I've had books where it's like there's other woman and other man drama. Again, I'm not that keen on that. But when it becomes cheating, it's like, just break up with the person. Just fucking break up with them. It's not that hard. I'm not bothered if they're the person's in a relationship in the beginning of the book and that ends and then they get in a relationship.
Yeah,
that's not cheating. But when it's like, oh, and I see too many books with that in now, and it's annoying.
I know. I know. So I've got the 9 most common romance tropes here.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I can read them out and then we'll both say what we feel about them.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, the love triangle.
Oh god.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, I'm gonna put it on record. I fucking hate love triangles. I really hate love triangles because they're always done so badly, and because you know who the fucking woman is going to pick in the end.
Do you though?
Most of the time I know, especially when there's dual point of view. Then you know. But the thing is, if I see that there is a love triangle, I will not pick them. I'm like, fuck off. And especially because most of the love triangles I read have been in YA, and they're always done really badly in YA.
Okay.
But I've read an adult love triangle, and I didn't like that either.
Right. So there was just okay. So I think last year, was it last year or maybe 2 years ago? I got this book, and you have read this first book.
I've read the first book, and then as soon as I haven't picked up the other two.
So I'll be honest with you. When I read this first book, I had no idea that this was going to be a love triangle until the very end, because of the way that it ended. That the man that she had been engaged to came back because she thought he died, but he came back, and she at this point had just moved on. And I actually absolutely adored the guy that she now fallen in love with.
Yeah.
But maybe I was being really dense as a reader, and maybe I should have really clocked as to why, from the beginning of this book, we kept seeing her past relationship with the guy she was engaged to. But then I kept thinking to myself, the reason why we're seeing that is so that we can see the character growth in her moving on and fully new. That's what I genuinely thought. But then no, at the end of the book, he came back. So now there's the man that she's in love with and the man that she loved. And then I thought, the hell's going on? I'm really confused, but I'm also intrigued. I need what's going to happen. So I dived into the second book and that mindfuck. And then I thought, I have to now know what's going to happen in the book because I need to know who she's going to end up with.
Yeah.
And I had already decided who she was going to end up with. And I had decided that if she didn't end up with the person that I had been shipping, which had been the new guy, I was probably just going to, I don't know what I was going to do. I was just in a state at that point. And the last book she delivered, and she ended up with the guy that she'd fallen in love with, and one from the past just moved on, which was fine. That's great. That's probably the only love triangle story that I will ever read. Like, I haven't read any of them because I think I'm terrified. I don't like the like the stress of it. It's too it stresses me out. It really stresses me out because I invest so much in a couple, but then as soon as I think this is what I went through with Twilight, because even to this day I still think Bella should have ended up with Jacob. I'm not okay. There's going to be it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I would prefer a wolf over Edward. I'm just for me, okay. I like vampires, but Edward was different.
Edward,
he was
like, I was Team Edward. However, I also understand why people ship Jacob.
Okay.
Well, I'm like, but only because I think when I read that as a teenager, I was like, a vampire, and now I'm just like, oh, that fucking book.
No, I'm team Jacob, right? Hear me out. I still, to some degree, can't forgive Edward for leaving Bella. And I understand the reason why he did it. But he left her for a long time, man. That's a long time. And during that time, she had Jacob, and he was like the bestest friend. Like, I absolutely adored the fact that he was there for her. And she even to some point, I disliked her, this treacherous kind of like self-destroying rampage that she went on.
Annoying.
It really was frustrating for me. Very dangerous and life-threatening. And poor Jacob, just bless his heart. But yeah, no, since then it's always just been Jacob. I think because we got to see more of him, we got his family and his pack, and I absolutely, I don't know what it is. I'm going to be honest with you, I love vampire. I have a weakness for werewolf and their pack. I just love the kind of brotherhood, the family aspect of it. But
okay, I'm gonna be honest, I love Jacob up until the creepiness of printing. No,
all right.
Creepiness of him imprinting on their daughter.
I know. Okay,
that was just really creepy to the point where I was like, right. I hated that so much. I hated it, and that kind of actually ruined his character a little bit for me.
I didn't like the last book. I didn't like the last book. I didn't like part 2. I didn't like it. I just felt it was so underwhelming. It was so underwhelming, and at that point,
thing that it had all been in them fucking mind, and I was like, this fucking battle happens. It's all in our minds, and I was really annoyed. I was just like, I fucking hate that trope. I hate it when something is not real, like that in that huge thing. And that wasn't just a short like dream. I would have been okay with it. It was like, let's move on from
let's just the next trope. Secret billionaire.
I don't think I've read enough of these to really comment on.
I actually haven't, but I've seen a couple of movies. And I have to say, I enjoy it. I don't know what it is. I enjoy those movies where he's a prince and he's like he's like undercover, not undercover, but he's just, incognito.
Oh yes.
I absolutely adore just seeing how that plays out, seeing him struggle from his wealthy lifestyle to then having to just struggle through life and then I love waiting to see her reaction because it's going to be like a massive shock, and also she's going to be really upset that he wasn't honest from the get-go, because obviously she would never judge him.
Yes,
I love that shit. I love it.
That's true. I have watched a fair few of those, and I quite like them.
Yeah, I've never read. I don't think I've read a book like that.
No, I just never really. I don't really. I'm not really a big fan of billionaire romances. Like, they just don't really do it for me. Like, as a specific trope, that it's only a billionaire romance on top of that. If that makes sense.
So the Mills and Bean books I read, they're all pretty much millionaires, and
Yeah, that's okay.
Wealthy guys, but the women already know that. Like,
yeah,
it's fine. That's more like an opulent kind of life, and your mind's kind of taken away by this amazing world, and I like that. But it's specifically the secret
billionaire,
yeah, which is like maybe I should look for books like that and see there.
Yeah, maybe. Right, what have we got next?
Friends to Lovers.
Friends to Lovers.
This is another one of my favorite. I should have said that as well.
Yeah, I haven't read too many Friends. I did read one, like, Friends to Lovers duet last year, was it? That I really enjoyed. Okay. Although they did start to fucking annoy me at one point when it was this will they won't. Because I think the complicated thing about Worse is that the guy used to, her best friend was he was the boyfriend of her best friend, and then the best friend died before the book happened. And then that's what made their relationship then complicated because they didn't, and then their families were like really, and it was a really good, I enjoyed it. But then the second, it took until like the end of the first book for them to actually like properly admit
act on it,
that they like, and then the end of the first book, and then there was this dumb there was other man drama, and then that was annoying. And then in the second book, they won't, like, them not telling their family business. And that kind of irritated me, but I liked the characters enough that I kept reading. And then this series, then it went on to other books and the other characters, and the series just really annoyed me because everyone at the end of the books ended up getting married and having babies, and I'm like, fucking stop with this. Not every single couple needs to be married and have babies. Like, yes, I know that's the typical happy ever, but I'm like, this is just it got unrealistic, because I was like, not every couple is going to want to be married and have babies. Like, you could have just had a couple of them getting engaged, but not getting pregnant. But everyone got pregnant. And I was like, fucking stop getting pregnant, people. Like, just stop. Like, I love happy ever afters with marriage and babies, but when it's every single book, I was like, please kill me now. Like, just stop. Anyway, they'll stop talking about that. But I do like I haven't read enough Friends like romances to really comment on whether I like to love.
Admittedly, I haven't.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not something I typically pick up.
Yeah. Shall I move on to the next one?
Yes.
Stuck Together. So this is literally where they are, for example, two people trapped in a snowed-in cabin, or they're forced to stay with each other overnight at the office, or road trip, or stuck in an arranged marriage.
Oh, I don't really read this.
Neither do I.
I'm not like, when I see like arranged marriage, like, I guess that kind of includes it, and I'm just not really a fan. It's not something I pick up.
I've read like an arranged marriage. Have I?
I've read arranged marriages before, and I would consider that being stuck together.
No, wait. Sorry.
Unless that's a separate.
I haven't read an arranged marriage. I've read where they've had to get married. Marriage of convenience. Yeah, I've read those. I like those.
I've read the where you have the one bed.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I have to say, I'm obsessed with the one bed situation. Yes. But that's not really, like, the whole book is not based on that. So I don't know. Yeah, that's not really something I read.
Pretty much the same. And then we've got Enemies to Lovers.
Well, we both know that we absolutely adore it.
Yeah, and we do both enjoy Forbidden Love.
Oh, Forbidden Love.
Very, very much.
The best thing in the world.
Yeah,
like,
and then
that's my top trope ever.
It really is. I do love it. And then we've got Second Chance. which you know I adore.
You adore that. I haven't read that many second chance romance. I have to be honest. I should maybe read them.
I worry that I was thinking about this the other day, where my fantasy romance series, I think I've got maybe 2 couple who would be second chance romance, and I thought to myself, geez, like those 2, including the one that I'm currently writing, I don't want it to be like a thing. You know what? Like, I don't want it to become a thing, because, as you say, it could get quite boring.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be like, oh, you know, SR writes second chance romances all the time or enemies to the time, because I don't want to do that. The next one, soulmate.
Oh, soulmate. I know that you love those.
Listen, I am obsessed with soulmate.
Oh, okay. I just have to put this out there. I recently told Sab what demisexual was, and she goes, "It's the soulmate syndrome." And I said, "No, it's not. It's not the soulmate syndrome. It just means it's about sexual attraction. It's not about." For those who don't know what demisexual is, it means that sexual attraction only happens to have emotional connection with the person, and otherwise you don't really feel sexual attraction. And that's a basic definition of it. And yeah, Sab immediately took that soulmate. It's about attraction. It's not really sexuality. But anyway, this is quite funny. We had this long thing. She goes, let me have this, Sarah. And I was like, for God's sake.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is?
It's really funny. It's because of the characters I was writing.
It's because of the characters, because I just know that they belong to each other. They belong to each other.
They do belong to each other.
They belong to each other. It's not even about they belong together. They belong to each other. It's because I read this paranormal romance by an author called Cresley Carr, who I adore. I absolutely adore her Immortals After Dark series. And in these Immortal After Dark books, it's very much soulmates, because a vampire his heart will only beat once he locks eyes with the woman that he's destined to be with, and then he'll know. Yeah, he'll know, because his heart will beat in again, and then he knows no matter what, she is his. And it's always a journey for him to get her to fall in love with him. But so there's that, and then there's also a similar thing. The Valkyries, who are like, the Valkyries will only know who their soulmate is the day that they run into his arms, because Valkyries are so strong and independent, and they never weaken themselves to a man. But the moment that they know that they've run into a man's arms because they adore him, that for them is when they realize he's my soulmate. It's like each and every one of the like paranormal occults have a thing where they know when they found their soulmate. So I think from reading her book since then, I've always strongly had this thing for soulmates, where I'm just like, there's a soulmate for everyone, kind of thing. Thank you, Chris. Just love it.
Oh, that's so cute. That's actually, I do like that when in paranormal romances, when you have like a soulmate or a mate bond. I think that's where I prefer it. Whereas like in contemporary romance, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not the same.
Slightly different in contemporary romance.
Yeah, there's no like mating bond or anything,
you know,
that kind of thing. Yeah. So in paranormal, I do kind of like I don't mind when people say that they're soulmates in like contemporary romance, but it's not exactly the same thing, I think. You know.
And then the last one we have here is fake relationship.
Oh god. Okay, the first time I read a fake relationship really like was when I started reading this romance series. And I kind of I liked it to an extent, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite trope. I'm not that big a fan of it. Like, it kind of annoyed me a little bit. Like,
but was it because it was that specific book?
No, it had nothing to do with the books. It was just like, I just don't really. It's not like I do like fake relationships, but like when the entire book is structured around a fake relationship, then it kind of becomes and it's like
you only feel like it could go on to a certain degree. When are they gonna like actually stop being in a fake relationship with each other? Whereas like if the book is I don't mind it as a trope, like I like it, but if it's like the whole book is
the plot is that they're in a fake relationship, and that I'm like, it has to be more. But then again, that's why I'm like with everything. I can't just be this one thing. There has to be more to a plot. Maybe I just like more complicated books. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like,
No, I think that's why I enjoy having more than one trope in a book.
yeah,
Because there's more conflicts to work with.
exactly.
A lot more drama.
I love drama. Okay, I'm just gonna put that out. I love drama. I absolutely love drama. I love drama and angst, but there gets a certain point where drama and angst becomes annoying.
But you don't want so much drama where it becomes annoying.
Yeah,
like really frustrating and like
you
unbelievable.
just want to smash the characters' heads together. Yeah. No, there's a fine line between drama and angst and it getting too much drama and angst. That's what I meant when I was talking about earlier about situation comes over the top. That is the exact thing. Comes too much and you're like, why?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I don't like books where it's like constant tension way through the entire book. Like, I can't deal with this, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
That will make me put a book down. I'm not gonna Have you read a book like that where there's no chapters where it's like a slight amount of from the tension? Because I swear to God, those are too hard to read.
I'm sure I have.
But you can't think of it.
I'm sure I have. Repeat that for me.
When you read a book where the drama just there is no relief from all of the tension and suspension. There's so much suspense and tension in the book, and there's no like even a small scene of where the tension isn't there. And I just find it so stressful to read books like that.
Okay. So right at the moment, I'm reading an romance, and it's exactly that right now. and I'm getting a little bit frustrated because it's so involved around these two characters who there's the connection between them is undeniable.
Yeah.
But it's so intense that it's constant. It's a constant thing. It's constantly a snap crackle. And I know I like snap crackle and pop. But when there's absolutely where there's no opportunity for you to just take a breather, it's starting to get a little bit annoying because I'm 50 or 43% through this book already.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think, how are there 4 more books in this series? And is there going to be some kind of change? Because it's a little bit, I'm still trying to figure out what kind of book this is.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantasy romance because there's a lot of mystery around one of the guys. The other one is straight up a captain. He's a pirate captain, pirate book. And I love it. I love the description. I love what's done. That I'm in this world. I feel like I'm a pirate, and you know how I feel about pirates. So she's got that on point, which is great. I'm strictly talking about the tension between these two characters. It's great, but it's a bit much now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out where it's going to go and when we're going to start. I'm going to draw out what we were saying before, in that I'm waiting for the plot. At first it was like, okay, I see where this is because one's a prisoner, one's a captain.
Yeah.
But at the moment I'm like, what's going to happen? And when is this going to change slightly? I need something changed because otherwise I just feel like I'm reading the same thing. It's just too much. It's too intense for me. I need something. I know I'm probably not making any sense, but
no,
yeah.
I understand what you mean.
So yeah, the answer to your question is yeah. Yeah.
I have read it.
I have read.
I can't think of one off the top of my head actually, funnily enough, but I just find it like it's too much. I can't deal with that kind of shit.
Yeah, I get you.
That's why I'm always like very much we have to have some point where the characters just settle down and have like a bit of banter or a bit of so it's not so tense all the time to the point where you just want to scream at the characters.
As I say, that's why I always appreciate a good relieving chapter.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. I completely understand.
So yeah, I mean, this has been a really long episode. I mean, our pods are never short. But that's because we have so much to say. But this has been a very interesting discussion.
A discussion that went off onto random tangents, as usual, because we apparently are capable of not doing that. But yeah, so to wrap up our podcast this has been our discussion about what we like and what we don't like as readers, and some discussion about us as writers. So hopefully you've enjoyed our little discussion, and we will see you again next time on Maiden Podcast.
Yes, see you later, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.